we dive into an interview with one of the newest members of the Baltimore Ravens next year on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we return here with another episode of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire. We're here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Ravens your first listen of the day. We're free and available on all platforms, and we're back. It is a Thursday edition episode and a very special Thursday edition episode as I had the pleasure and the honor of interviewing one of the newest members of this Ravens team in safety Marcus Williams. Now, the signing of Marcus, it was celebrated throughout all of Ravens Nation, all the Ravens fan base, and rightfully so, one of the best young safeties in this league, now a member of the Ravens. And for me, getting to know Marcus on and off the field here was an absolute blast. And he's the type of player, the type of person that the Ravens really want to have in their organization. And really, it really shows throughout this entire thing. So I'm excited for everybody to listen to this and just learn about Marcus a bit on and off the field. In the second segment, we'll dive into the safety position and talk about the Ravens re-signing as Stone. In the final segment, we'll dive into mock drafts from Twitter. But before we dive into all that, if you're with us on YouTube in video form, we do put out daily Ravens content 5 days a week. So be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video. It does help out a ton. In audio form, it's the same exact thing, the same show, both video and audio form, available on any podcast platform. So be sure to follow, turn notifications on, and be sure to follow me on Twitter at KOStriker34 and the Locked On Ravens account at Locked On Ravens. But now, without any further ado, let's dive into the interview that I had with Marcus Williams. Joining me now is one of the newest members of the Baltimore Ravens, safety Marcus Williams. Marcus, it's great to have you on here. Thanks for taking the time. How you doing today?
Man, I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, and I'm excited to talk with you here and just learn a bit about you both on and off the field. And I know I want to start off with just how you fell in love with the game of football. Was there a moment growing up, whether it was a person or just an experience you had, that really told you, yeah, this is what I want to devote a ton of my time to, and I'm ready to kind of take this to the next level?
Man, I just started young, loving sports in general, going out there and playing sports in the front yard at recess, whatever it was. I loved doing that. So once I actually got into football at like 8 years old, I just stuck with it. I played football, I played basketball, but once I got to high school and I kept devoting my time to football and basketball, football kind of took over. And then I feel like I had something there. I was ready to, strive and thrive in being a football player for sure.
Yeah, and so you were a second-round pick in New Orleans back in 2017. You spent 5 years there. But I want to go back to draft night for you because I'm very interested in all the emotions that come into a moment like that. When you finally have that goal realized and you finally get that call, you understand, wow, like this is real. I've made it. Can you kind of go through the emotions there, and can you recall what that was like for you?
Man, draft night was crazy. It was only supposed to be a couple of people at my house, me, my immediate family, my uncle, and my grandparents. But the day of draft day, I had a full house, and I had the whole neighborhood on my street, like at the house. I get drafted, I get the call, and once I get off the phone, everybody's yelling, they're hitting me, grabbing me. But it was a great experience. It was definitely something that I could never forget. That's the day that everything changed. Going to play in the NFL, but it was definitely a great day.
Yeah, and something else that I'm always curious about is if you had something like a welcome to the NFL moment. I know a lot of players talk about it, but was there a particular play in a game or a moment during maybe a rookie training camp where it all kind of hit you where you said, wow, like I am really here. I am an NFL player now?
I think just the first play of the first game, you're like, okay, I'm out here now. I'm actually here. This is not a dream anymore. I'm really out here. This is my reality. And now I just got to go out there and perform. But it was like, wow, you made it, you did it. But you gotta hone in on all those emotions so you can go out there and play.
Yeah, no, it seems that way. And you've, Marcus, established yourself as one of the best ball hawks in this league right now. And that dates back to your college days at Utah. You had 5 interceptions there each of your last 2 seasons, 15 here in your first 5 NFL seasons. But I think, at least to me, there's a lot more to your game than that. You're not just a ball hawk. You do a lot of other things well. You're an underrated hitter. You're a very smart football player. So how would you describe your game personally when you're looking at yourself?
Man, I'm definitely that ball hawk for sure. I attack the ball, but I make those for sure tackles, and I go out there and I'm smart. I just know what's coming before it comes sometimes, so I'm able to put more people in position. There's sometimes that I'm down at the line of scrimmage telling somebody, to go blitz or to come back, or I'm a great communicator. I communicate, but I'm definitely a leader back there. You may not hear me a lot in like the media or anything, but on the field and in the meeting room, I'm pretty vocal on what's going on and what I think needs to improve or things like that. But I may not be the rah guy, but I'm the guy that's like, hey guys, let's get it together, speak to people how they want to be spoken to. But that's how I am. I think that adds value.
Right. And I think a big key is there are multiple ways to be a leader. And so you don't necessarily have to be that rah guy. And I think for you, you understand that, hey, this is how I want to lead. This is what works for me. And I think that's really good. But Marcus, you had a really interesting point during your press conference about someone asked you about Drew Brees and just going up against him, what you took away from playing against a player like Drew Brees in practice. And they asked you, how many receptions you got. You couldn't really, you didn't really know the answer to that. But now you're going to be going up against a different type of quarterback in practice in Lamar Jackson. And actually, I believe you were on the field for his first ever touchdown back when you traveled to Baltimore to play them in 2018. How excited are you to just be on the field with Lamar Jackson at practice and be able to play against a player that does what he does?
It's exciting. You know the game's kind of going that way to these mobile quarterbacks. So being able to go up against one in practice and already knowing what he could do, how explosive he is, how talented he is, how smart he is, it's definitely going to help elevate my game to another level. But he's definitely a person that I'm ready to go against in practice and compete with, because I know he's a competitor as well. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and also, Marcus, on the team website, it has you at number 43. Is that official? Is number 43 the number you're rocking with this year? Can you say that? Is that what you're going with?
I don't know. I guess we gotta wait and see.
All right. Well, stay tuned. Stay tuned for Marcus's number. But Marcus, in college, you wore number 20, and here in
Right.
Baltimore, there is a very familiar number 20 to a lot of people, Mr. Ed Reed himself, someone who I think there are some similarities there between you and him. Did you take anything away from just watching him growing up? Was he a player that you looked at and said, "Hey, one day I could be like this"?
Growing up, I really didn't watch football like that. Actually, it
Oh,
wasn't until I actually got to the NFL when I started to watch a little bit more of his game, and people started comparing me. But I know he's a different type of player, and so am I. But he's a Hall of Famer, man. He did everything: kick return, punt return. He's blocking kicks. He did everything. So that's a talent that's hard to find. But I'm a different type of player, and I think I'm special in my own way, and I will leave my own legacy there. I don't need to be number 20 anymore. He got it. That's his number. He retired. He's a Hall of Famer. That's his number. I'm not gonna try to. I follow my own footsteps. I don't follow somebody else's.
that's a good mindset to have. And you talked about legacy. Do you have any idea of what you want your legacy in the NFL to be when it's all said and done? When you hang up your cleats, what do you kind of envision for yourself as a legacy for you?
Just leaving it all out there on the field, um, week in and week out. Being with the guys in the locker room, giving them a good impression of me, who I really am, not trying to be someone who I'm not. But that's really what I want. I want people to say, "Dang, we really miss Marcus," or he's a special guy on and off the field, and I feel like that's what I want to leave my legacy as.
Yeah, well, it seems like you're far on your way to doing that right now. And if you keep on the path you're at, it seems like you're going to get there. But Marcus, when looking at the secondary you're becoming a part of now, there's stars in there, yourself included. You got Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters, Chuck Clark. People are excited about you four as a tandem together. Based off what you know so far about those types of players, how excited are you to join that secondary and kind of carry on that Ravens tradition of defense?
It's definitely exciting going into a guy where they're all about ball, all about winning, all about taking the ball away. These guys are you see in their stats, they got the ball, they got ball production. But adding me, we're just gonna go up a little bit more. But once we get into camp, once we get into the film room and stuff like that, I'm sure we'll come together, be a tight group, and we'll go out there and we'll show people what we're made of.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the off season, Marcus, it's a time where you can kind of hone in on skills, get better at your craft in certain areas. Is there anything you're focusing on this off season, whether it comes to training or anything else, where you can maybe see improvement from yourself in 2022 on the football field? Where are you kind of focusing this off season?
I'm focusing a lot on some man-to-man type stuff, in short type spaces, moving in short spaces and things like that right now. So when I do have to go up against tight ends or receivers, then I'll be prepared. I always prepare for stuff that I may get thrown into or I may have to do. Even if it doesn't happen, I want to be ready for that opportunity when it comes. So I'm working a lot on that. But we just started. I probably started super early. I started like February. I've been working out since February. But we're getting after it already. And once season comes, I'll be ready.
Yeah, and you fit right in there. The Ravens, a lot of their team right now working out, getting better, and you fit that mold. It seems like already. But Marcus, going back to your college days, obviously, there was another safety who went to the University of Utah. You've talked about before in Eric Weddle and the relationship that you've kind of formed with him. Can you kind of dive into that a little bit and how that formed and where you two are now? Because it seems like he had a bit of an influence here for you.
Well, growing up at Utah, I really didn't know who he was until one time he came into the facility, and I'm like, oh wait, that's the safety who was here who used to play with my DC. So they were basically roommates or something like that. I was like, okay, that's cool. He's already in the league. I'm like, wow, this is the first NFL player I've ever met. So I've never met an NFL player until I met him, which he probably doesn't even know that. But when I met him, I'm like, okay. And then I seen him on TV. I'm like, dang, he's a baller. He's one of the best. And he's actually from my surrounding area. So we call it Inland Empire. He's actually from here. So I'm like, I want to watch him. I watch him and I see him, constructing the defense. He's putting people in their place. He's making plays on the ball. He's an all-around player. He's smart, instinctive. And I'm like, I want to be like that. That's how I want to be like, and even better, But he's definitely somebody, like, reached out to him, he replied, and he's not a guy who's just gonna stand you up or anything like that. He's gonna get back to you in a reasonable time, and that's what I like about him.
Yeah, it's always great to have guys like that. And actually, someone who signed alongside Weddle in 2019 with the Ravens was one of your former teammates in New Orleans, Mark Ingram, who spent some time with you in two different stints. He was with you your rookie and second years in 2017, 2018, then obviously came back to New Orleans in that Houston trade mid-year last year. But can you kind of talk about Ingram a little bit? Because in Baltimore, he became an instant fan favorite and really helped the culture that Baltimore has. He embraced it and on and off the field really did amazing things for this organization. Can you kind of talk about your relationship with Mark and what it's like to be a teammate with him?
That's my brother, man. He looks out to me like I'm his little brother. We talk all the time. We in a group message. We text. We call on the phone. He was probably one of the first people who called me after I signed, saying, "You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it, and you're gonna go out there and you're gonna do great." But me and Mark, that's my dog. We kind of got our own little lingo we got together, but he's definitely somebody I look up to. Again, even though he plays offense, but just as a father figure, he takes care of his children. He takes care of his wife. He does it all, but he's definitely somebody you can really latch on to, and he's there for you anytime you need him.
Yeah, and it seems like he was that way in Baltimore. And I see him and you commenting on Instagram and everything. So it seems like you have that relationship pretty down pat, and that's great to hear. But Marcus, off the field, you're into fashion and you have your line marked as winners. And the meaning behind it I found very, very fascinating because I love the message behind it. Can you kind of go into what your line's message is and what it means to you?
Man, marked as winners is a line we came up to tell people you are marked as winners, whether it's in sports, whether it's in your job career, whatever it is, you are marked as a winner. We face adversity in our life every single day. We go through with these mental blocks, whatever we're going through. But when you're marked as winner, you get back up every time you get knocked down. You don't take no as an answer. You keep going. You keep striving to be the best that you could be in your particular job area. Whatever you want to be, you can be. You don't give up. So for me, it's like why would I let someone tell me I can't do something? Why would I give up when the light is right there at the end of the tunnel? Why would I not keep going when right behind the next door is my chance, my opportunity? But being marked as winners is who we are. We can be marked as a winner. We will be marked as a winner. We won't let anybody tell us that we can't be. So success is not what somebody else perceives of you. Success is what you feel is success. So you find your own success, you find your own way, you find your own path, and that will be marked as a winner.
Yeah, what a phenomenal message. I mean, seriously, this is stuff that I think inspires people daily. And to have a brand like that that means that type of message is amazing. But Marcus, to you, what makes an outfit? Is there a specific part of an outfit that really is like all right, this is what's going to make or break it? Is it accessories like chains? Is it shoes? Is it a top? What to you is that make or break piece?
Man, to me, it's probably the shoes. I don't. I mean, you can start from the bottom always. You could always start with the shoes and then work your way up. You get a top, you're like, man, what shoes I'm gonna wear? But for me, I like the shoes. I have a whole bunch of Nikes. Ones are my favorite, so I probably would say the shoes for sure.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with the shoes. I feel like, you got a little accessory here and there doesn't hurt also. Between you and me, I have a little Versace chain that I kind of have tucked away. So, it kind of goes with the territory. But Marcus, finally, I want to get into a bit of your streaming career because you started that recently and it seems like it's going really well. You have a ton of fun with it. What kind of things are you doing over there and how has that experience been for you so far?
Man, streaming it's fun. It's exciting. I mean, I go on there, I could just be myself. I don't know who's watching. It could be 100 people, it could be 5 people, but I don't care. I'm gonna just go on the game, play Call of Duty, whatever, 2K, whatever it is. I'm gonna go on there, have fun with it, just be myself. Because I mean, I don't care what people think about me. I mean, they could think whatever they want. They could say whatever they want about me, but that's their own opinion. I know who I am inside. I know what I provide. I know that I make people happy. And my goal in life is to make others happy and build other people up. So that's really why I do it.
Yeah, and it's great to find those little things inside of stuff like that. And I feel like to have that mindset every day, it helps you as a successful person. It helps you as a winner. And I think Marcus, the Ravens made a phenomenal decision here. But that's all I have for you today, Marcus. Thank you so much for coming on. Congratulations on your contract. And again, welcome to Baltimore.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it.
How amazing is Marcus Williams? Again, the big thank you to Marcus for allowing me the chance and the honor to interview him and just to learn about him, talk with him about a bunch of different topics. It was really such a fun time just to talk and get to know Marcus. So I'm really happy that was able to happen and hopefully everybody enjoyed it. We'll head into our first break here now, though, on Locked On Ravens. When we get back, we'll be diving into the Ravens safety position. Still a ton to talk about here on Locked On Ravens. But first, let me tell you a bit about BetOnline. And now March Madness, it is over with Kansas as the champions. I had Gonzaga and Illinois. It was a pretty big failure on my part, but now we can focus back more on the NHL and the NBA and the MLB starting up here soon. So there's a ton to bet on still, and betonline.net is your number one source for all of your sports betting needs. They have free live casino games and everything that you can imagine. Plus, they have experts to help you with all of your sports wagering needs. So if you need a place to get in on the action, go to betonline.net. BetOnline, it does have you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. We're back here. Our second segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher, your host, still here with you. Coming at you after my interview with Marcus Williams. Again, big thank you to Marcus and everybody involved to help set it up, help get it going. And I think we had a really awesome conversation. So that it was a blast. But now let's continue talking about Marcus's position in the safety position as the Ravens actually re-signed Geno Stone to a deal. Now, this was not necessarily, an agreement in terms of like a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year contract. It was more of Stone signed as exclusive rights tender. So pretty much Stone had the option to sign the tender or sit out. So it's like, all right, he's probably coming back to Baltimore at some point. So with the exclusive rights for agents, they really don't have the option. So it's either you accept it or you sit out. So for Stone, he accepted it. He's back with the Ravens. And I think the salary, just read at The Athletic, put it right around $895,000. So again, not a break the bank type move by any stretch of the imagination. But we've talked about the secondary depth even as early as this week on this show. and where the Ravens going with the cornerback position. How can they rebuild that room? Well, their safety position right now is looking very, very strong with depth and with talent. Obviously, Marcus Williams is a big part of that, but you have Chuck Clark, who has been kind of the glue guy in that secondary and has been able to wear the green dot, communicate well. And obviously communication, a bit of an issue on the defense last season. It was not what you usually want to see out of a back half of the defense in terms of communication, but it wasn't just the safeties, right? There were communication issues all over that defense. And I think bringing in a guy like Marcus Williams, you got Michael Pearson there as well. Now just some stable veterans who have seen a lot at this level, that'll be key. But Clark is kind of the glue guy, as I talked about. It'll be Williams and Clark kind of manning the starting safety positions. And I know that there are some hot and cold reactions on Clark in terms of what people think about him. Some people just think he's very meh and like not that good. I happen to think he is very good, but I think you have to accept him as he is. He's not necessarily going to be this ball hawking player. He drops a lot of interceptions. We've seen that before, but he can play up in the box. He's versatile, a good tackler. He improved in coverage a lot also in 2021. So that was a great step for me that I saw out of him. But it's also the depth behind these guys that I think you have to look at. Tony Jefferson coming back. People have kind of pegged him in that Anthony Levine senior role. Levine obviously retiring from the game of football, still with the Ravens in a different role, but he's not going to be playing anymore. So people are kind of pegging Jefferson as that like special teams player who could also play in some different situations. I like Jefferson in that role a lot. You also have a couple of wild cards. Brandon Stephens or Darius Washington, two players who we talked about again earlier this week. It seems like the Ravens like Washington more in a slot cornerback role. We could also see Brandon Stephens in that role. I see Brandon Stephens more as a do-it-all versatile piece, maybe what a Jimmy Smith-ish type role was like last season, 2 years ago, where they were trying to use him at safety and use him all around the field so he can line up at safety, line up at corner. But I think Stephens is a very versatile piece, and it's the same thing with Washington, where we know this Ravens defense loves to move guys all around the field. And you know, Don Martindale's not in Baltimore anymore, but I don't think that philosophy is going to change with Mike McDonald. I think he's still going to utilize guys in all different roles. But when you look at the safety position, are you classifying Brandon Stephens as a safety? Are you classifying Darius Washington as a safety? At this point right now, let's just call Brandon Stephens and Darius Washington safeties at the moment. So you have Brandon Stephens, Marcus Williams, Chuck Clark, and you have a bunch of other players as well who I think could step in. But when you look at the actual positions of the safety or what these guys are going to do with the safety position, you have a lot of options in terms of how you can line them up. So you have Clark, Jefferson, kind of you can play them up in the box type safeties. They're not the best in coverage, but they can hold up. I thought Jefferson actually played a lot better in coverage this time around than he did in his first stint. Geno Stone is more of a free safety at this point. You could say the same thing about Darius Washington. You can throw Marcus Williams in there as well, obviously. And Brandon Stephens, I'd say more free safety as well. Deshaun Elliott, I'm a huge Deshaun Elliott fan. I think he's a great football player, but the injury history, maybe on a 1 year, very, very cheap contract, but then it becomes, where are you playing everybody? I think people are kind of ready to see Brandon Stephens at this point. And people would have been completely fine, I feel like, with Elliott coming back. I know I was, but at this point, it feels like Brandon Stephens is that next guy in line as opposed to Deshaun Elliott at this point. So for Stone, his addition it's not earth-shattering news, right? But I think it's a key addition because, look, injuries happen. We saw that in 2021. We don't want to see it again. We don't want to have that 2021 year if we're looking at the Ravens. But I feel like for what Baltimore has to offer at the position now, it is deep. And if a Williams or a Clark goes down, and hopefully they don't, they have options who can step in pretty seamlessly, honestly, and play those two safety roles. But you can line these guys up in a bunch of different roles. You can play 3 safeties on the field. You can play 4 safeties on the field. I don't know if they'd go 4 safety looks, but they could do it. If you want to classify Washington as a safety and then they put him in at slot corner, Brandon Stephens roaming, Williams and Clark playing it in too high or something, you can do that. But for me, it feels like it's going to be the Williams and Clark show. You have Brandon Stephens being that like do it all, line up all over the place type player. And then you have Washington, you have Stone, you have Jefferson as really quality depth pieces. Washington, if the Ravens trust Washington enough as a slot corner, which I want to see him get more reps there to see. I think Baltimore's probably going to draft a guy who can play slot, but it would be of at least my best interest to probably not put Marlon Humphrey back there. I think Humphrey's great in the slot. He's great, but I'd rather have him on the outside. So if the Ravens trust Washington in that role, I think he could do some good things. He played some snaps there during the preseason, played some snaps there, well, very minimal snaps during the regular season. You didn't really get on the field, but that's an underrated player that I would potentially look at to play a major role on this defense, depending on how the Ravens address the slot corner / safety position. In terms of free agency of the draft, we talked a bit about with Deshaun Elliott, just like where's the fit. At this point, you could maybe add a late round safety, but I feel like there are just better ways to spend that pick now with the addition of Williams and bringing back Jefferson, bringing back Stone. An undrafted guy or two wouldn't hurt at all. I feel like you can have those guys for camp bodies or competition. That's awesome. But for me personally, if you're looking in the 6th round, maybe that's a running back, maybe that's a tight end, another defensive lineman, another corner, edge, etc. That's probably where I'm spending that pick personally. But it wouldn't shock me if the Ravens they fall in love with a guy late, Bubba Bolden, someone out of Miami who's potentially an option. If Nick Cross somehow falls super low, I'm not saying 6th round, but if Nick Cross falls, maybe they draft him. There are really good safety options, Kirby Joseph and other, but I feel like for Baltimore, they have their guys now. It might just be one or two very minor additions in terms of undrafted free agency, but the big one being Marcus Williams. You also have the Tony Jefferson re-signing, the Geno Stone re-signing as well. So I think Baltimore's pretty set there. In the secondary, Baltimore, I think, has to turn that attention to cornerback, fill out that room. Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters are pretty lonely in that room, it feels like right now, with Tavon Young gone, Anthony Averett gone, Chris Westry gone, Jimmy Smith still in the free agent market. So that's where I'd pivot if I were the Ravens in terms of the secondary. Safety is all good for me right now. I think it's obviously more cornerback. We'll head into our final break here on Locked On Ravens. When we get back, we'll be looking at mock drafts from Twitter that we got for Monday that we'll read out here today. So be sure to stay tuned for that. Still a ton to talk about on Locked On Ravens. We'll be right back. We're back here on Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher, your host, still here with you. We had our Marcus Williams interview in the first segment, talked about the safety position in the second segment. Now let's talk about mock drafts from Twitter. I'm going to read them down here from the tweet that I put out on Sunday, and we'll start off with a mock draft from Benno, who has the Ravens taking Jermaine Johnson, edge from Florida State at 14. Jalen Petrie, Baylor, defensive back at 45. Darian Beaver, Cincinnati linebacker, 76. Killen Beach, Arizona State tackle at 100. Cam Taylor, Britt, Nebraska corner at 110. Matthew Butler, Tennessee defensive lineman at 119. Kyron Williams, Notre Dame running back at 128. Cordell Flott, LSU corner at 139. DeMarco Jackson, Appalachian State linebacker, 141. And Chickaconquo, Maryland tight end at 196. There's been a lot of Jermaine Johnson hype, it feels like, for the Ravens over the past couple days, couple weeks. I would love the pick. He's good against the run, a great pass rusher. If there aren't any of those top 5 talents that are falling a little bit, then I think Johnson would be a phenomenal player at 14. There's no guarantee he even gets there. I think he'll probably go before, but if he gets there, yeah, that's a great pick. Petrie is one of those guys who, like a Brandon Stevens, you can play all over the field. So you could line him up anywhere, and I think he's a very versatile piece that they can use. You get the linebacker there with Beavers, the tackle depth with Deesh. Cam Taylor Britt, one of my favorite mid-round corners in this draft, so I like that pick a lot. Matthew Butler, we talked about earlier in the week. Then you get the running back, another corner, DeMarco Jackson, a linebacker, then the tight end. So, yeah, a mock draft that hits needs. Maybe I would double down at edge somewhere, maybe take a center or another defensive lineman. But overall, I'm not sweating too much about that. So I like this mock draft a lot from Benno. Next, we'll look at a mock draft from Austin Brown, who has the Ravens taking Devontae Wyatt, Georgia defensive lineman, at 17. I don't know exactly how they got 17. I mean, it's probably a trade down type thing, but the Ravens, then they trade for DK Metcalf. They get Metcalf in pick number 40 for picks 45, 110, 128, 141, around 2 in 2023, and around 5 in 2023. They hit Jalen Petrie, defensive back, at 40. Jamari Salyer, Georgia tackle or offensive lineman, at 76. Darian Beavers, linebacker, at 79. Donovan West, center from Arizona State, at 100. Cordell Flott, LSU corner, at 119. Matthew Butler, Tennessee defensive lineman, at 123. Alex Smith, Virginia Tech guard, at 139. Chickaconquo, Maryland tight end, at 196. Matt Araiza, punter from San Diego State, at 214. And so, yeah, the Wyatt pick is great. I like him in a trade back scenario. So assuming the Ravens did trade back to 17, it feels like that's the case. To me, I think Wyatt would be a solid pick there, depending on who is on the board. For Metcalf, there have been a bunch of rumors. If he's available, that's awesome. You have to also, if you're the Ravens, look at the contract, the draft capital that you have to give up if you're the team. So a lot to look at there. And it seems like the Seahawks aren't really looking to trade him at this point based off of the stuff that's come out. But hey, who knows? Crazier things have happened. Petrie, we talked about. Salyer, a very versatile guard, I think he could play guard, play center. He also has the versatility to move out to tackle as well. But then there's offensive line depth galore here. 3 offensive linemen. I think that's like the sweet spot. My sweet spot's anywhere from 2 to 3. I think 4 is a little too many. 1 is probably a little too little for me. So I think that for the Ravens, 3 is right in that sweet spot. You get Salyer, West, and Smith. And then Butler, we talked about. Beavers is a nice linebacker there. You got Okonkwo, and Areza would spell the end of Sam Cook in Baltimore, it feels like. So a solid mock draft here from Austin. I like this, and the Metcalf trade, if that does happen, it would add a lot to it. Next, we have a mock draft from Jacob Anderson, who says, this will never happen, but a trade down with ridiculous return. Ajabo might fall because of injury. A weapon for Lamar and getting help to the front 7. So this has the Ravens getting Garrett Wilson, the wide receiver from Ohio State, at number 18. Devontae Wyatt, Georgia, defensive lineman at 45. David Ajabo, edge from Michigan at 49. Cam Thomas, edge from San Diego State at 76. Leo Chanel, linebacker, Wisconsin at 100. And Jerome Ford, running back from Cincinnati at 110. And that's where it cuts off if there are any more picks. But so the trade down for a Wilson, I think, Wilson is widely regarded one of the top 3 at least wide receivers in this class. Some have him as his best, others it could be second or third. But I think Wilson's a phenomenal player. I'm getting more and more on board to the wide receiver round 1 train. The talent is obviously there with some of these guys, Chris Olave, Drake London, etc. But I don't know. I feel like for the Ravens, it depends on how the board falls. And in this case, Jacob picks Wilson. I don't hate the pick whatsoever. It's just a matter of who else is there for me. Wyatt at 45 is an absolute steal. David Ajabo at 49, absolute steal. 2 guys who can help your front 7 out. Wyatt immediately, Ajabo kind of more in the future with his injury. Then you have Cam Thomas, who has also been kind of banged up during this whole pre-draft process, but I think is a very solid player. Chanel's one of the better linebackers in this class, in my opinion. Ford gives the Ravens a nice explosiveness as a running back. So assuming this mock draft did cut off and there's maybe like a tight end or some corners at the bottom here, I can't see those, but obviously my initial thoughts is it's a good draft, there is a lot of value taken here, but I think some corners would be nice for the Ravens that don't really have a ton of them right now. And finally, we will look at a mock draft from T. Doug, who has the Ravens making some trades here. So there are a lot of trades here. Let's start off with the 14th pick and the 100th pick being traded to New Orleans for 18, 49, and 98. Then the Ravens trade 18 to Pittsburgh for 20 and 84. Then 20 goes to Green Bay for 22 and 92. 22 goes to Dallas for 24 and 88. 24 goes to Tennessee for 26 and 90. 26 goes to Green Bay for 28 and 132. And 28 goes to Cincinnati for 31 and 95. Wow. It's trading back and back and back and back. That is insane. And so now we have a ton of picks. Boye Mafe, Minnesota edge, is the pick at 31. Chad Muma, linebacker, 45. Perion Winfrey, Oklahoma defensive lineman at 76. Dinner Falele, Minnesota tackle at 84. Marcus Jones, corner from Houston at 88. Nick Cross, safety from Maryland at 90. Nicholas Petit Frere, offensive tackle from Ohio State at 92. Tyler Ligier, BYU halfback at 95. Matthew Butler, Tennessee defensive lineman at 110. Tariq Castro Fields, Penn State corner at 119. Sam Williams, edge at 128. Jerome Ford, Cincinnati running back at 132. Micah McFadden, linebacker at 139. Jelani Woods, tight end at 141. And Velus Jones Jr., wide receiver at 196. And on top of it all, the Ravens trade for DK Metcalf. They traded pick, 49 and 98 for DK Metcalf. So what a whirlwind this was. I like a ton of these prospects, though. Like, I love Mafe. I love Marcus Jones, Nick Cross, Petit Frere, Butler, Sam Williams, Jelani Woods, Jones Jr. These are all really solid prospects. Now, realistically, would the Ravens trade back? What is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times? No. I don't think they would make 7 trade backs pretty much in a row. But it's funny to kind of look at this and see, wow, if the Ravens traded back, is how many picks are there here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Do the Ravens have room for 15 picks on their roster? When it's all said and done, probably not. But it is nice to look at a mock draft like this in terms of if the Ravens wanted to pick up even more capital, they have 10 picks right now. Of course, 9 in the first 4 rounds. But if they want to pick up 2 extra picks, there is value throughout this entire draft. You know, you look to round 1, all the stars that we see, but I mean, seriously, there are value picks to be had in every single round in this class. And so while I don't think 15 picks is going to be the end result for this team, I could see him maybe wanting 11 or 12. I think 12 is probably the highest I would go for the Ravens needing that many rookies on a roster. I don't believe they would do that, but I think that's the highest I would go. But again, this is a deep draft class, and I think the Ravens could definitely take advantage of that, especially considering the extensions the Ravens will have to sign guys to if they want to keep them, including Lamar Jackson, Marquise Brown, etc. So T-Dug makes a nice mock draft here. Not 15 picks isn't realistic. It's probably not, but I like the fact that we could look and say, hey, if the Ravens have 12 picks, 11 picks, there's tons of value to be had. But that's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe on the way out, like the video, but it was great. Another great episode. I'm excited to talk to you tomorrow. We'll have more Ravens talk then, so be sure to stay tuned for that, and I will see you tomorrow.